Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We welcome everybody who's joining us from home and those who are here with us in person. Even those Fromsons who come late to the service, we welcome them also. Not to make mention of it, we'll just say it quietly. That's okay. That's okay. We're blessed with extra corn blooms this evening. So, Adam David, will you introduce your great uncle? Great uncle, will you introduce him? Say his name out loud, please. Use words. This is our uncle. Wonderful. So he gets the record for longest commute this evening. Welcome. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for joining us. And we also want to, before we begin our service, we want to honor and bless all of you who have a simcha this month. If you have a birthday or an anniversary in the month of April, we're not joking on April 1st. We're serious. Any April birthdays? Anybody have April birthdays or anniversaries? Anyone? No one? No, except. Look at that. He remembered. Well done. Well done. So we and Zach has had almost an April birthday, but a very important 40th birthday, and so we'll include Zach with all of you. So if you have a birthday or an anniversary, we invite you to stand up as we'll share Shakianu over you as we wish for you many more joyous days that we get to celebrate with you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'echianu v'kimanu v'higianu la'azman hazeh. Amen.
Wonderful. You can be seated. We'll invite Lauren and Zach to light our Shabbat candles. The blessing is found on page 2.
O source of light and truth, creator of eternal law and goodness, help us find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Thank you. We begin page 10. We welcome each other with the words Hinei ma tov, how good it is to be together.
Hinei ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. 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 Hinei ma tov u'manayim shevet achim
Take a deep breath now as we walk back through our week. We remember where we were last Shabbat. Can count the days, perhaps by what season we experienced. There was one day that was the dead of winter, the next day that was the middle of summer this week. So you can walk back through our week. Remember the people we've spoken with, those we've been able to bless, those frustrations we allow to wash away as we take a moment to enter into this Shabbat. Words, page 20 of Lechad Odi, to welcome in the peace, the rest, the joy of Shabbat together.
פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם לא תפארת ולתחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Please rise as we welcome Shabbat into our sanctuary or into your homes.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובסוחלה, תוך אמונה עם סגולה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Please be seated, page 24.
Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharit, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. בואכם לשלום, מלכי השלום, מלכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך צאתכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. שלום עליכם, שלום עליכם, מלאכי השרת, מלאכי העליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש, הקדוש ברוך הוא. Please join me on the following page for Chatzi Kaddish. Yitgadal v'kadash Shemei Rabbah Be'almad yivrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayichon v'yomechon uv'chayedecho bein Yisrael b'agala b'agala uv'izman kariv v'yimaru amin. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam olam me'amaya yitabarach yitbarach v'yishtamach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroma v'yinasi v'yitadar v'yitali v'yitalal Shemei Dekadasha Barichu le'elam minkom b'chata b'shirata tushmachata v'nechemata damiran me'ama v'imaru amin.
Having welcomed Shabbat, we turn to page 28. Please rise for our formal call to worship.
Lay la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'id. HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'id.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, from whom this evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars, creator of the tide of time and light. You guide the current of day into night. Let us take this time to bless this moment of change. As our day turns to evening, Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim, may we find this evening to be filled with blessing. Amen. Page 32.
Ahavat olam bet Yisrael Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadta, Otanu limadta. Alkein
34 and 35 are Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kivud Malachutu Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated as we join together in V'ahavta, page 36.
V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadavarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alavavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'latlecha v'derech uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotapot b'neinecha uktavtam al mizuzo beitecha u'visharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Please join with me, page 41, as we share this reading together before we share the words of Micha Mocha. Sing the song of men and women, joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. Page 40.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקי הים לפני משה. Elianu ve'ameru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh Norah Hilot Osefele. Ashkivenu on page 42. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'ha'amidenu shomreinu l'chayim. Sukat shalomecha, ufros alinu sukat shalomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Oh, Adonai. Amen. Amen. Shabbat Vishamru on page 44. Please join me. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dodotam barit olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dodotam barit olam. Beni uvein, Bnei Yisrael, oti leolam. Vishamru Bnei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dodotam barit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dodotam barit olam. Uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dodotam barit olam.
Page 46, we turn to our Amidah, our most personal prayers. We remind ourselves that we turn to these pages praying as if everything depends upon God, but reminding ourselves that we act as if everything depends on us. Somewhere in between, we hope solutions are found. Page 46, please rise as we face our ark.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Kanei Hakol, V'zocher chasdei avot v'imahot, u'mevi geula livnei b'neihem, l'ma'an shemo be'ahava, melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, baruch atah Adonai, magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah, atah gibor le'olam Adonai, mechayeh hakol atah, rav lahoshia, Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem, mechalkel chayim bechesed, mechayeh hakol be'orachamim rabim, somech noflim berofech olim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar, michamocha ba'el geburot, umidam elach, melech memit umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman atah lehachayot hakol, baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol.
Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh u'kdoshim b'chol yom yehalalucha sela baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Please be seated. Page 57. We rarely share this prayer. I won't really share it this evening either. It's a challenging prayer for us. Sorry, page 55 is what I'm referring to. This reading, counter to the essence of Shabbat, asks God to disturb us, as though sometimes we need to be unsettled because we get too comfortable, but we are living in a world that seems to not require that prayer because we seem to get disturbed regularly. This week, not only by the continued war in Ukraine, but also by terror attacks, which were briefly reported in Israel as 3 attacks took place. And as tonight we'll add, as many synagogues are, the names of those who were murdered this week by terror attacks in Israel to our list of those that we've lost as we offer our sympathy and compassion for their families. Most of them, as I'm looking at the list of names, the youngest at 19, most of them under the age of 50, and the oldest at 67. So people's lives cut off far too short. 2 of the men, Ukrainians, who had moved to Israel years ago. And so to be disturbed, it's so easy now to know that there were Ukrainians and Arab Israelis and rabbis and people who were simply walking the streets who felt they were entirely safe, but because there is a summit happening between Israel and Arab countries in Israel this week, people thought they could disturb others by taking lives. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, we say, grant abundant peace to Israel, your people, forever. For you are a God who loves peace. Baruch atah Adonai hamvarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. May we find that peace in Israel, among the people Israel, and in our world. May we be disturbed no more as we offer these words. Page 61.
Yisagoy goy cherev, lo yimadu od milchama. Lo yisagoy goy cherev, lo yimadu od milchama. Lo yisagoy goy cherev, lo yimadu od milchama. Lo yisagoy goy cherev, lo od milchama. Lo yisagoy goy cherev, lo yimadu od milchama. Lo yisagoy goy cherev, lo yimadu od milchama.
Take a moment for our own personal prayers.
Oh, say shalom imromav. Oh, yes, shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Ve'imru amin. Oh, say shalom imromav. Oh, yes, shalom aleinu ve'akol Yisrael ve'akol yoshvei tevel ve'imru Shalom bimrama, huyas shalom aleinu, ve'akol Yisrael, ve'akol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru Shalom bimrama, huyas shalom aleinu, ve'akol Yisrael, ve'akol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru
Page 253, we turn to the words of Misha Berach, our prayer that those whom we love and know who are in need of healing find a refuah shlema, a full sense of themselves once again. We'll invite you in the midst of this prayer to share the names of those loved ones that you would like to feel this prayer on this Shabbat.
Avotenu Makor Hamracha Laimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen.
Read Wasserstrom.
Deb Maimon.
Misheberach Ivotenu Makor Habracha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm blessed to have Hannah and Ezra with me tonight, my oldest and youngest, as Noah is with Carrie visiting family in Florida. And with them as props tonight, I'll start by talking about them, which is that in our house, there's our morning ritual during the week is that, unfortunately, I can't understand this, although the school district will never listen to me. The older children in our school districts have to wake up early. So Hannah, our middle schooler, gets on the bus at 7:30 something. And Noah and Ezra, our elementary school children, they don't get on the bus until almost 9 o'clock in the morning. Now, why the older child who would prefer to sleep in has to wake up and get on the bus at 7:30, but the younger children who wake up when the sun comes up have to wait until 9 o'clock makes no sense, but that's what we live with. So it's created a bit of a morning ritual for us. Carrie leaves for work by 7:30, which means I'm with the boys for a good 90 minutes. After they get dressed, eat breakfast, pack up their bags, I have about 85 minutes left until they get on the bus. So one of our traditions has become to sit on the couch that looks out our back window and try to see what animals are out in the morning. We're lucky that our backyard has lots of woods, and so we see plenty of birds. We have a bird book that Ezra loves to identify the birds. We have a little stream, so we get ducks and a blue heron occasionally. There's a woodchuck who hobbles along, pops his head up, and then runs away because he's very skittish. Once we saw a coyote that actually came up onto our deck. But one of the animals that's most elusive is also, we have found, the largest. And that is the herd of deer. In the summer, when the trees and bushes are full of leaves, we can mostly make them out. In the winter, when there's a blanket of white snow, you see them immediately, and even if they're not there, you see their footprints, right? Their tracks. So even if the deer are not present, you still know the deer were there last night because you wake up, you look outside in the morning, and you can see where they were. But at times like this, what we call the shoulder seasons, the times between the dramatic seasons when our backyard, like yours, is filled with trees that are still brown and leaves that are still brown on the ground, and there's not a lot of color other than brown. A grown deer can be standing right in front of us, and we don't even see it. We've learned that the only way to see this huge animal, especially when there are 5, 6, 7 of them, is if they flutter their little white tail, and you see this little squirrel-like thing flying through the air, and then you realize it's attached to this large animal. So I want to ask you to hold on to that image for a moment, because I didn't just want to talk about deer, even though Bob would perhaps prefer it. Switching gears, 2 days ago, Professor Deborah Lipstadt was confirmed by the United States Senate to be the very first special envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism. At a time when we are increasingly aware of growing anti-Semitism, this is an historic achievement for our country. Historic because it's a new position that elevates the work of anti-Semitism to that of an ambassador. The United States now approaches anti-Semitism in the same way we approach a foreign country, with the full weight and resources of our State Department. Perhaps more particular for the American Jewish community, we can now add the name of Deborah Lipstadt to the likes of Golda Meir and Ruth Bader Ginsburg as a leading Jewish woman who not only takes her civic duty seriously, but also her commitment to Judaism and the Jewish people seriously. She is an active congregant in her modern Orthodox congregation in Atlanta. She's credited with starting the Jewish Studies Department at Emory University. Her civic and Jewish credentials are strong. But tonight I want to share why we should celebrate Professor Lipstadt beyond the historic nature and beyond the role that she might play in the Jewish history books. So we return to the image of the deer. There is no shortage of organizations or esteemed individuals in the world who have spent their lives studying the Holocaust and anti-Semitism. So too, there's no shortage of civic leaders passionate about addressing prejudice, and particularly anti-Semitism. What makes Dr. Lipstadt unique among all of these very qualified people is that she does not just see anti-Semitism when it comes cloaked in a white robe, carrying a torch down Main Street. She sees anti-Semitism where it is hard to find. Back to my backyard. It's easy to see a deer when the ground is covered with snow. It's easy to see anti-Semitism when it marches down Main Street, when it holds hostages in synagogues, or it shouts, "Jews will not replace us." We all see that anti-Semitism, but what about the times when it's not obvious? It's much harder, almost impossible to see, like a deer in March in Ohio. But Dr. Lipstadt has made a career of seeing it during the hardest times. I would call it her superpower. In fact, it even came up during her confirmation hearing. Dr. Lipstadt was recommended by the president for this position in July. The process was then stalled because, largely, Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson took issue with a tweet by Dr. Lipstadt. The tweet was an article printed about his comments in support of the January 6th Capitol riots. Lipstadt was unequivocal in calling the riots, and by reference, his comments, white supremacy. She was courageous in sharing her expert opinion publicly, and her nomination was held up for almost 8 months, seemingly for this issue alone, as other people were nominated almost by the dozens. But this is not just politics. This is what the front lines of fighting anti-Semitism looks like. To most eyes, the January 6th riots have nothing to do with anti-Semitism. So why would Dr. Lipstadt raise her voice in that moment? This is not her issue. Former white nationalist, now outspoken activist Derek Black said the following: "White nationalists believe that all of their problems with society are created by an organized conspiracy of Jewish people who are motivating and pushing immigration laws, civil rights laws. It is a belief system that in many ways disregards people of color, but sees a secret cabal, a conspiracy by Jewish people, and therefore Jewish people are the main targets of white nationalists." Derek Black knows that because he lived in it, because he was a white nationalist. Dr. Lipstadt called out the January 6th riots and the comments of a U.S. senator because she sees what most of us, including that senator, do not. White supremacy is cloaked in racial terms, but it is the front lines of anti-Semitism. So now we have a special envoy in the State Department who sees anti-Semitism before the rest of us. Sometimes she sees it before us because it's cloaked in racism, but even if we don't see anti-Semitism in the January 6th riots as quickly as she does, it's not like we all approve of them. We don't approve of racism. It's not hard to be against that. Anti-Semitism is even more difficult to see when it comes from the people and groups that we call friends and allies. In my mind, I think of this as white-collar anti-Semitism. Unlike white supremacy, white-collar anti-Semitism often comes from the highly educated, progressive elite. It's common on college campuses, often reported when Jewish students join groups fighting for civil rights, such as the Black Student Alliance, for women's rights groups, or for the LGBTQ pride efforts. In her most recent book, Anti-Semitism Here and Now, Dr. Lipstadt shares a series of emails she had with one of her students. The student writes to her, "Increasingly, we find that at meetings of these progressive groups, irrespective of the agenda of the meeting, opposition to Israeli government policies or to the existence of the State of Israel is almost certain to figure into the conversation. Sometimes," the student says, "it's not what is said about Israel that makes us feel uncomfortable. What alarms us are the assumptions that are made about Jews in general. In discussions about bigotry and prejudice, our attempts to bring anti-Semitism into the conversation are shot down by some faculty and students with the comment that, because Jews are a privileged group, the connections we are trying to make are irrelevant and invalid. They contend that for something to be racist or prejudicial, it has to be composed of both prejudice and power." Lipstadt responds in far more pages than I can share right now that you cannot exclude a group from being attacked simply because they have some power. And she sums up part of her response, a message to all of us, by saying, "There is a growing tendency among those who fight anti-Semitism to see it as a problem that exists only on the other side of the political spectrum. Those on the left see Jew hatred only on the right. Those on the right see it only on the left. Both are correct in what they see, but they are blind, or rather willfully blind, to the anti-Semitism that's in their midst. White-collar anti-Semitism, again, my term, is hard to see because it's often dressed up in intellect, in compassion, in concern for the underprivileged. It presumes that privilege makes one immune to prejudice. Lipstadt knows this is not the case. So my metaphor for anti-Semitism is the deer you can't see, the big animal that's right in front of you that perhaps only during a certain moment comes into view. Her metaphor is better. In an interview with NBC, she compared anti-Semitism to the herpes virus. It's a terrible thing, and the truth of the matter is, her words, from what I understand medically, once you have it, you can never be quite free of it. Under pressure at a difficult time, the day before your wedding, perhaps, you could suddenly have an outbreak. You're under pressure. And I think anti-Semitism is like that. It sits in the society, and at pressure times, it can be unleashed. So there's no antidote to anti-Semitism. It can live among the poor. It can be among the ignorant. It can be the focal point of hate-filled people who hate people for the color of their skin and their religion and their country of origin. And it can live among the wealthy and the educated and the peace-loving activist community. Dr. Lipstadt sees that. She writes about it, she talks about it, and now she's been deputized to seek it out wherever it is. She goes even further. If it is near impossible to see a deer in the forest, how about seeing anti-Semitism in a sea of Jews? In her book, she writes about an incident with Natalie Portman. The famous actress was invited to receive an award from the Israeli government. She declined out of her discomfort with Prime Minister Netanyahu and his policies. In response, some Jewish organizations and members of the Knesset attacked Portman, calling her anti-Semitic. Lipstadt refers to this as a shoot-yourself-in-the-foot strategy. If anti-Semitism is to be taken seriously, Israel and the Jewish community cannot point the finger at every criticism we receive. This waters down the definition of anti-Semitism, making it even harder to identify when it really is a threat. For all these reasons, and I'm sure many, many more, in my opinion, Dr. Lipstadt is a wonderful choice to be the special envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism. She has the best eyes for it. She's proven herself to be courageously outspoken, criticizing senators, prime ministers, Jews, even defending those who criticize Israel vehemently but don't cross the line of being anti-Semitic. But I don't speak about her this evening to give her accolades. I speak about her because her appointment, I think, offers a challenge to us. The hope I have is that she is not alone in her vision nor in her voice. We need to be able to see the animal that is anti-Semitism when it is right in front of us, when it comes in a white coat with a pointy hat, and when it's wearing a Black Lives Matter t-shirt or teaching our humanities class. Once we see what is hard to see, then we have to figure out how we react. We know what to do with white nationalism. What do we say to our friends, to our fellow Jews, to those who love Israel blindly, those who associate their hatred of Israeli policy with Jewish privilege? It's not simple. It's not easy. So I'll end with this invitation. At the end of this month, we're beginning an important series that's been almost a year in the making. It is titled Anti-Zionism, Is it Anti-Semitism? ? Begins on April 29th with guest speaker Bel Yoeli from the American Jewish Committee. Ms. Yoeli will frame where anti-Semitism is in America today. It's our community Shabbat, and so her audience will be the entire Jewish Akron community, and we hope you'll join us. Service is at 7 o'clock that night, so you're welcome to come at 6:15. You'll just get the first seats. But Ms. Yoeli will speak with us as a Jewish professional who's well aware, especially of this current generation and the complexities of anti-Semitism as she's worked for the AJC her entire professional career. She'll talk with us about the realities of anti-Semitism that we are facing and especially our kids are facing. The following week, May 6th, Friday night, we'll welcome Hillel professionals, local leaders, Jennifer Chestnut and Adam Hirsch, along with some students to talk to us about what Jewish life is like on campus, especially when it comes to issues that are often contentious and perhaps anti-Semitic. And finally, on Wednesday, May 25th, one of the great progressive Zionist rabbis, Ami Hirsch, was the rabbi at Stephen Wise Synagogue in New York. He will join us virtually, live, but virtually. It's amazing how close New York and Akron can be when you use a television screen. One of the great thinkers on what it means to be a progressive Jew and a Zionist from an American perspective. We'll have the opportunity on May 25th to have lunch together. Those who want to join us here at Temple are welcome to be here. Those who want to join from home can do that too. As we take these 3 days at the end of the month and in May to start to be able to see anti-Semitism where perhaps we don't, to learn how to respond to anti-Semitism where perhaps we don't have the words, and to see what it is we can do to be a partner with Deborah Lipstadt, a professor who is now in the State Department, to approach anti-Semitism as though it is a country out there in the world that we must deal with. So let us celebrate her confirmation, and let us pledge not to let her do this work alone. Ani va'ata nishaneh et ha'olam. Her, you, me, together, we can change this world for the better.
Ani ve'ata nishaneh et ha'olam. Ani ve'ata az yavo'u kvar kulam. Amru et ze kodem lefanai lo mishaneh. Ani ve'ata nishaneh et ha'olam. Ani ve'ata ננסה מההתחלה. יהיה לנו רע, אין דבר זה לא נורא. אמרו את זה קודם, לפניי לא משנה. אני ואתה נשנה את העולם. אני ואתה נשנה את העולם.
Please rise, page 282. Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגר עלינו כחמונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
Please be seated. God, remember our people who suffered and died so that we could be free and secure. For their dreams left unfulfilled and lives taken too soon, we remember. Remember the fallen of our armed services, the victims of terror and tragedy. May the darkness of their loss not obscure the light of peace. They were in love with our land and in love with life. For the agony, the tears, the mothers and fathers, for the children who were and the children yet to be, we take this time to remember. In our congregation, we mourn the recent loss of Gloria Katz. We add to her name those whom we likely did not know personally, but whom we are remembering as if they were our own, those killed in the terror attacks in Israel this last week. Amir Khoury, Rabbi Avishai Yechezkel, Rabbi Yaakov Shalom, Dmitry Mitrik, Victor Sorakufet, Shirel Abiukart, Vizan Falach, Laura Yitzhak, Rabbi Moshe Karbitsky, Dorit Yachbas, Menachem Yechezkel. And we add to their names those that we remember whose yahrzeit falls during this week: Isaac Averbach, Jerry Barone, Evelyn Baer, Murray Cohen, Ruth Moskovitz Cooper, Rabbi Abraham Kronbach, Molly Dutchman, Belle Frost, Julius Frost, Samuel Gelberd, Pauline Havra, Clara Heimlich, Joseph Herman, William Hollander, Rose Katzman, Roy Kirschner, Samuel Klausner, Louis Kodish, Albert Kondritzer, George Corman, Dr. Irvin S. Morris, Ernie Nogg, Pearl Pomerantz, Leslie Radwani, Elsie Riegel, Eleanor Rosenberg, Dave Rosenfeld, Rose Rubenstein, George Schulman, Hannah Schwartz, Armin Sischerman, Hilda Sobel, Maria Sunik, Carl Surloff, Claire Susselman, Adolph Weil, and Helen Wides. If there are names that I mispronounced or names you'd like to add, please share them. Page 294, please rise as we honor our loved ones with these words. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam omei omaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudesha barichu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechamata, ta'amiran bi'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Having honored those that we've loved and lost, we honor each other, blessing each other with the words of the priests. May God bless you and keep you. May God's light shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May you feel God's presence within you always, and may you find peace. Please remain standing as we'll invite young Zach
Or Zach Young.
and young Lauren to raise our Kiddush cup and lead us in Kiddush found on page 4 and 5 in our prayer books if you want to follow along.
The heaven and the earth were finished, and all their array. On the seventh day God finished the work that God had been doing, and God ceased on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work of creation that God had done.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodesho v'ahava uvratzon inchilanu זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים, כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Amen.
Amen. If you'll hold up the challah, we'll join together in Motzi.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Please be seated. We invite Elaine Newman, one of our co-presidents, to share a couple announcements.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody on the TV and in here, and welcome back to a few of our snowbirds. You're starting to come in slowly. You just didn't bring us warm weather. Thank you to Zach and Lauren for blessing us tonight, and thank you, Eli, for playing the piano. Passover starts April 15th. Visit the Sisterhood shop. They have lots of Seder things, lots of supplies, gifts, and more. And join us on Monday, April 25th, for Dewey's Pizza Night again. And please make sure we'll probably be saying this again and again. Mention that it is for Temple Israel, because 20% of the proceeds go back to the religious school. The annual Hunger Walk is on Sunday, May 1st. And it's in our rolling screen every week, and it's in the window, but it is akroninterfaith.org to register. And save the dates of the weekend of June 24th to June 25th to honor our Mishkan, our outdoor sanctuary. There's going to be a special service Friday night and a fundraising program on Saturday night. And there is a poster in the lobby, thanks to Rini Pinsky. And we'll have more information on that every single week. And thank you to Sisterhood for sponsoring the ONIC tonight. Shabbat Shalom.
Close with the words of Odivo Shalom Aleinu. Please stand as we'll go into Shabbat, words of increased peace for all of us in the world.
Odivo Shalom Aleinu, Odivo Shalom Aleinu, Odivo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Odivo Shalom Aleinu, Odivo Shalom Aleinu, Odivo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam, salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Odivo Shalom Aleinu, Odivo Shalom Aleinu, Odivo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Odivo Shalom Aleinu, Odivo Shalom Aleinu, Odivo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Shabbat Shalom.